guys, and welcome to our third show, Veterans Onward to Prosperity. I hope everybody is doing well this April and enjoying the spring weather, even though we are getting a mix of other seasons in with our spring weather. But I didn't call you all together just to talk about the weather. I called you all together because this show is all about giving you information, resources, and sources so that on your life's journey from the military to civilian life, you're going to have more of a smoother transition than I did. This is your host, Master Sergeant Retired Anna Maria Bliven, to give you that information, resources, and sources that I wish I had when I was transitioning from military to civilian. In our last show, I left you with the promise that I was going to give you a short story. Well, how about I do this? I'll start the story in the beginning of our show, and I will finish the story at the end of my show. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed with learning about what it is that happened to me in 2008 when I left after 26 years. Can you believe it? 26 years serving in the Army and making it all the way up to E8. Okay, for those of you that are in the listed side of the house, you know that the top of the rung is E9. So I almost made it to the top of the rung. In fact, the day that came for me to decide whether I wanted to put in my promotion packet, I was told we were going to jump out of a rolling Humvee in our next training cycle. And it's like, I don't think I want to jump out of a rolling Humvee. Not that I'm disparaging anybody else from jumping out of a rolling Humvee. It's important that you learn how to jump out of a rolling Humvee and live to tell the tale. But this person, at that stage of my game, I was ready to just say, no, I'm not going to do that. And consequently, that meant I wasn't going to put in my promotion packet. Instead, I was going to leave the military. One of the things that I learned in my transition, and guys, when you're warriors now, and when you get to be transitioning to veteran status, listen up. We are not to say that we retired from the military if in fact you're leaving after 20 years plus of service. No, I learned in interviews, no less, that when you say that you retire from the military, on the civilian side of the house, they don't quite understand. So just a little bit of my story is what I just told you. At the end of the show, I will finish telling you the rest of the story. But in the meantime, we're going to take a break and we're going to bring back our guest because the real topic of this show is not so much my story of what happened in 2008, but rather what happens to all of us on our life's journey, be it in the military or in civilian, with money. Remember, I told you April is Mission Money Possible. So this episode is all about what to do in the management of money so our house of cards don't come crumbling down. More on that, and I will introduce our guest in just a moment.
Mike Merwin here, U.S. Navy retired submarine officer turned entrepreneur. I turned my hobby of 25 plus years making beef jerky into a thriving small business. Made in small batches with only high quality ingredients, it's not good, it's crazy good. A portion of all proceeds helps save military lives. Order now on www.crazymikesjerky.com using code CB10 for 10% off.
Hi, and welcome back to Veterans Onward to Prosperity. I'm your host, Master Sergeant Retired Anna Maria Bliven. And today we have the privilege of having the money coach, Anita Wright. She is someone who, according to what she's written in LinkedIn, and you'll see this on her website, she's a financial coach, an educator, and I love this part of her description. She creates a sense of hope and security for people in difficult financial situations. Anita, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
And so, how is it we get into the difficult money situations and our house of cards come crumbling down?
Well, there's usually a number of things. It's been said that finances are 80% behavior and 20% head knowledge.
Ooh,
Typically, a lot of the problem is that we're not paying attention to what we're doing with our money. There's no plan. You just go on what people have told you that maybe you should be doing. We have a tendency to sometimes follow with the idea that we need to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. And so we think we have to have the newest and greatest and best thing out there, even though we may not need it. And so we go out and buy it. And usually what happens then is, you just keep buying things and you're not actually paying attention to where that money's going. And so eventually you wind up taking out credit cards, you take out loans. So you wind up with all this debt that eventually even your income, sometimes you can't pay for it. You have trouble paying what you owe other people because you're not making enough money or you've just taken out too much debt. And it's decisions that you make typically. You can have all the head knowledge, you can know a lot about money, but there's a lot of people that know a lot about money that are still living paycheck to paycheck.
that's interesting. So it's based on behavior.
A lot of it.
And the underlying behavior then comes from the compulsivity that you got to have it.
Right. That's a lot of it. Or what you're taught. You may grow up in a household where you get everything you want. And so whenever you get out there in the real world, on your own, you don't know how to handle it. And so you think you still have to have everything. So yeah, part of it's compulsion, but sometimes it's just what you're taught as well. The way you live your life growing up.
So that's a habit that can actually make our house of cards crumble. But there is the same with smoking, right? It's a habit, right? Over drinking overly than you should, that's a habit. So I'm under the impression that if you really want to break a habit, you can.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely.
So how do we do that where money is concerned?
Well, the big thing is, one of the things you have to do really is you've got to figure out, why are you making these decisions? Why have you gotten yourself into this position? Because if you don't understand that, then it's going to be hard to break that habit, because you have to know what you were doing in order to get there. So, because those are the things you have to change in your life. And so you have to sit down, why did you get there? How did you get there? Did it have to do with buying too many things, or do you just not have enough income? There could be an income crisis, or there could be you just have, you've been overspending and you could actually cut back on a lot of things, maybe. I know a lot of times, especially men, and I know I'm kind of stereotyping here. I'm sure some women do it too, but, men are always talking about wanting the big truck, the big fancy truck. And so they go and spend $55,000 or $60,000 on a pickup. They can't afford it. It's more than their house payment, the loan payment is. And so you don't think about it. So you have to step back and think about why you're doing it, how you got there first. And then you have to create a budget. The budget is the foundation of everything. You have to tell your money where to go, and you have to know what you have coming in and what you have going out. That's actually the foundation of everything. I've heard it said, in fact, my late husband and I even felt it when we started really working the budget. You feel like you get a raise whenever you actually sit down and put the numbers down on paper, and you realize, oh my gosh, I have all this money, and I can handle it now. So that's probably the biggest thing, is putting a plan in place. You have to have a plan, and you have to carry through with that plan every single month. You have to have a new budget every month. So that's the biggest thing.
Okay, so you're saying that we can break the habit of overspending. And the way to help with that is with a budget.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely.
Well, that gives me hope because, it took me many, many, many years to figure out that that's exactly what we got to do. In fact, I was under the impression that once it got spent, I could just earn it again.
Right.
And then before I knew it, I had 3 jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if you don't want to be a person with 3 jobs, just manage the 1 or the 2 at the most, right?
Right. Yes. Yes. And there's, I mean, you can, if you cut back, there again, the expensive vehicles, get rid of that expensive vehicle, go to a less expensive vehicle for a while. It doesn't have to be long term, but just go, downgrade on some things. And I know a lot of people are not going to want to hear me say this, but get rid of cable for a while, or satellite, whatever, dish, whatever, however you're getting your television, get rid of that for a while. But it doesn't have to be a very long period of time. Just to get out of debt. That's the biggest thing, is you want to get out of debt, because if you think about it, your money is your biggest wealth building tool. And so if you're paying all your money out to creditors, you don't have any money to put away to save for your future. So that's one of the keys, is to get out of debt. And sometimes you have to make sacrifices and get rid of some things for a while. On average, people get out of debt in 18 to 24 months.
Okay.
In the scheme of things, for a lifetime, that's not very long, really. So if you can sacrifice for that long, then once you get out of debt and have money in the bank just for emergencies, because that's another key too, you have to have money in the bank for emergencies. Do that, and then you've got money freed up that you can do other things with. You can save for retirement, save to buy things, pay cash for things. But until you get out of debt, it's really hard to do that.
So in the military, we get a steady paycheck because we're in the military. And if you are receiving a paycheck, you still have to manage it, folks.
Exactly.
Right. And so for those of you that are warriors, you kind of have it a little better than us veterans in the fact that you know that you've got a steady paycheck. For us veterans, not so, it's not as a sure thing. I mean, ask for everybody that in the pandemic lost their jobs, right? But in the military, you still get a paycheck. So how about this, warriors? Start doing what it is that Anita has just said. Get yourself some paper, get yourself a pen or a pencil, and start writing down what it is that you spend on. Obviously, if you're on post, you don't have your housing, but you do have your groceries. You do have like Anita said, if you've also got cable TV, that's an expense. Write it down.
Yep.
Anything else that you are spending, like gasoline for your car,
Yeah.
right? Tire rotation, oil changes. Even though you may be going to living on post and going to the chow hall for lunch, some of you are maybe officers and you're spending money for that lunch. You're not just doing that with a signature as the enlisteds are. You're spending that money there at the chow hall, right? Anything you're taking your credit card or your debit card, you should be keeping track. Like, for example, my husband and I are on the threshold soon to cross over for retirement. We are now writing down what it is that we're spending because we have to make sure that we've got enough money after we stop working. So, there's different stages of life that require a budget. For those kids that are getting out of high school and going into college, well, guess what? You got to have a budget. You got to know what money it takes to live in no matter what stage of life, right, Anita?
Yes, most definitely.
And if you do that, then you're building your house of cards and more likely it's gonna stay built.
Right.
But Anita, let's talk about situations where you need to rebuild your cards. You got to rebuild. You're struggling, you're in debt. You said you give cents. So let's talk about that when we come back from this break.
Okay. Sounds good.